Today I'm going to show you how to make a ball that falls and bounces and can jump and move left and right. We learned earlier how to move our cat back and forth using the left and right arrows and using the spacebar to make him jump. The only problem is it's kind of choppy. When I compare that to something like Mario, you can see that Mario falls, he accelerates as he falls, and he sort of jumps up and decelerates as he comes down. That means he slows down as he falls and speeds up as he initially jumps. So how can we make our cat move a little bit more like Super Mario? The first thing I want to do is put a ground in so that our cat doesn't fall forever. I'm going to double click here on the stage, go to backgrounds, and edit the background. And just for now, I'm going to add in a blue square to the bottom. Just a simple, easy ground. Done. Okay, let's go back to our cat. So we're going to say we want everything to start in our game when we push the green flag. Now you can see when my ball moves here, it moves up quickly, slows down, and then starts to drop. As it drops, it falls more quickly, and that's called acceleration. Now, we need the cat to fall when he's not standing on the ground. So we need gravity. I'm going to make a new variable. A variable is just somewhere in Scratch where we can remember something, and I'm going to call it gravity. It's going to be for all sprites because all of the different sprites in Scratch will be able to see gravity. And here we go. We can see right now gravity is 0. The first thing we're going to do when we run the program is set the value of gravity. And we can change this to change the behavior of the game. I want my cat to fall down along the y-axis. So I'm going to make it negative so that he moves down, and I'm going to make it 0.3. So gravity is set to negative 0.3. We also need to remember how fast our cat is traveling. So I'm going to make another variable. We're going to call this one velocity. And this is just the velocity of the cat, so I'm going to make this one for this sprite only. Let's initialize that as well. We'll set the initial velocity of the cat to 0, which means he's not going to move anywhere until gravity pulls him. Okay, so let's make our cat fall. I'm going to wrap everything inside a forever loop. We want to change how fast the cat falls, so we're going to set the cat's velocity to its current velocity plus gravity. So set it to its current velocity plus gravity. Okay, so far we've changed the variable for the cat's velocity to equal velocity plus gravity, but we haven't actually done anything to the cat. So here's where we want to change or set its y position to set y to, we want to add together its current y position with its calculated velocity. And when we push the green flag, our cat falls. But he falls through the ground. So, how do we make him bounce? I want my cat to bounce whenever he's touching this ground, and this ground is blue. So I'm going to go up to Controls. I'm going to say, if the cat is touching the color blue, we want it to bounce. If not, we want it to fall. So I'm going to take all the code that I just wrote for fall and put it in else. Okay? If the cat hits blue, it's going to bounce. Otherwise, it's going to fall. So how do we tell if it's touching blue? We go here to sensing. So if touching color blue, I'm going to add my bounce information in here in a sec. Otherwise, it's going to fall. So you can see right now he stopped. He's no longer, I'm sorry, as soon as he touches the blue, he does nothing because there's nothing inside here. Otherwise, he falls. So if I pick my cat up again, he'll fall. You can see he accelerates He's getting faster and faster. Okay, so as soon as he touches this, I want him to all of a sudden start moving in the opposite direction by bouncing. So I'm going to go up and say, set my velocity to the opposite direction. And to do that, I just take my original velocity and I multiply it by -1. Okay, currently it's falling down the y-axis, which is negative. And if we want it to go up the y-axis, we just multiply it by -1. Okay, a negative times a negative is a positive number. Because I've only affected the variable here, I need to change his position. So I go to motion and I say set y to his current position, and we want to add it to his new velocity. And I put this in the wrong spot. It belongs up here. So I want to set y to his current y position plus the new velocity we've just calculated. Alright, let's see what happens now. Push the green flag, and we have a bouncing cat. Now he's going to bounce forever, up and down, up and down. But really, when you see a ball bounce, it bounces less and less with each bounce. So now we need to deal with that. So after his bounce, we're going to set his velocity. So let's set our cat's velocity to its current velocity divided by 5. So with each bounce, he's bouncing 1/5 as high as he bounced before. Okay, but you can see he continues to bounce. So as you can see, the cat just keeps bouncing forever and ever, just a little bit. And we don't want that to happen. We only want him to bounce, let's say, 3 times. So I have to create a new variable that counts the number of times the cat bounces. I go to variables, make a variable. Let's call this one bounce count, and it will count how many times the cat bounces. Now this is only for the cat, so I'll say for this sprite only. And now we have a bounce count. When we start our program, we want to set the bounce count to 0. And now we're going to start counting it each time he bounces. So we'll say change bounce count by 1. So each time our cat bounces, it should count it. And you can see it's getting very fast as he's bouncing just a little bit. Let's stop it. So now we need to use the bounce count information. We're going to say if, and only if, our cat has bounced fewer than 2 times, then he can bounce. So I'm going to bring this up here. If our cat has bounced fewer than 2 times, then let him bounce. So now I'm going to move all this bouncing information from here to here and move this up there. And if he has bounced more than that many times, we're going to set his velocity to 0. So let's see, does it work? Lift up my cat, push the green flag, and he should bounce. 1, 2, 3. There. So now let's make it so that our cat can jump. I'm going to go into controls, and this is a lot like we learned before. I'm going to say when I push my space bar, I want my cat to jump. But my cat can only jump if he's already touching the ground, which is blue. So I'm going to say I only want my cat to jump if he's touching the color blue. And when he jumps, I want to set my bounce count to 0 because he's not bouncing anymore. So I say set bounce count to 0. And we're going to set his velocity to a positive number so he travels upwards. And I'm just going to choose the number 6. Let's see how this works. If I push that, he falls, but, so I've set my velocity to 6, but I haven't actually changed the cat's position. So I need to go into motion, I need to set y to his current y position plus his new velocity. And now we should have a jumping cat. Look at that. Fantastic. The last thing we want to do is make our cat move left and right, as well as moving or jumping. So we could do this in the same way as we made him jump by saying when space is pressed, then do something. But instead we're going to add it to our forever loop up here. And we're going to check to see if the left arrow is pressed, then we want him to move this way. And on the x-axis here, if he's moving in this direction, then he's moving in a negative direction on the x-axis. So I need to make a new variable here. We're going to call it horizontal velocity. We're going to make it for this sprite only. And what I need to do is, when I push the left arrow, we're going to set the horizontal velocity to a negative number so that he moves left. Now I'm going to just arbitrarily choose one here. I'm going to choose -3. If you were to choose -4, he would move faster. So you can try that on your own. I'm going to go here to Control, and I'm just going to duplicate this now. And I'll just change what I need to change here. So instead of left arrow, this time we're going to say if right arrow is pressed, we want him to move in the opposite direction, which is in the positive direction along the x-axis, and I'm going to choose the number 3. The last thing we need to do is go to motion and actually change x by the horizontal velocity. And now when I push left and right, my cat moves left and right. But when I tap left or right, he doesn't stop moving. So what I need to do is add in one last thing to make him stop when I'm not pushing left or right. So I'm going to go here to Control again, and I'm going to say if, now this gets a little complicated, but I want to check to make sure that if the left arrow and the right arrow are both not being pushed, that I do something. So I'm going to say, I'm going to use my operator AND here. I want to make sure that both the left arrow and the right arrow are not being pushed. So I have not something and not something else. So I'm going to be checking for not left arrow being pushed and not right arrow being pushed. And if they're both not being pushed, then what I'm going to do, instead of just stopping him, I'm going to decelerate him. So how do I do that? Well, I'm going to say change his horizontal velocity. Or sorry, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to set his horizontal velocity to whatever it was before, times a number. Now, if I were to make this a number bigger than the number 1, the horizontal velocity would get bigger, but I want it to get smaller, so I'm going to change it to 0.92, 92% of its previous speed. And now, when we push the flag, I can push left, and you can see he slows down. He doesn't stop immediately. And that's more like the motion that you'd have from a game like Super Mario. If you push left, he runs and he slows down as you stop. He doesn't stop immediately. So now we have a cat that moves left and right and jumps. Does everything we want him to do. So I'm sure you can make this more interesting by changing the way the cat looks as he runs left and right and the way he looks when he jumps, but I'll leave that up to you.